I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Centerville Board of Education for Monday, November 23, 2020, through a remote Zoom meeting. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dernbaugh?
Here.
Dr. Rourke?
Here.
Mr. Schroyer?
Here.
Megan Sparks?
Here.
Mr. Dahl?
Here. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda as presented. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Dernbaugh?
Yes.
Dr. Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Schroyer?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes. Next item of the agenda is hearing of the public. The board provides this opportunity for public comment before any actions is taken. Since we're having this meeting remotely, citizens were asked to contact the board's office to indicate their desire to speak to the board during this time period. Speakers shall provide their name, address. For adult speakers. Minors only need to provide their name. Speakers have been asked to limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes. As the board has other business to conduct, the board will listen to all comments and generally not engage in discussion or refer necessary follow-up to the superintendent. Board members can be contacted through the board offices or through their email addresses. My understanding that we have at least one person who has comments. Is that correct, Mr. Henderson?
I believe that's right, Mr. Dahl. Sarah, are you ready?
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My
Hello.
name is Tammy Beal, and I'm the only one so far. I've tried to trim it down to 3 minutes, but I will do my best.
Thank you.
But hi, my name is Tammy Beal. I live at 5636 Brampton Road in Washington Township, and the zip is 45429. Again, my name is Tammy Beal. I'm a lifelong resident raising a third-generation Elks in Washington Township. My address, which I just gave you, I also want to say that I am a proud school bus driver in our district. I am also a college graduate with a degree in early childhood education. I have worked with children in many capacities for 30 years. I am well equipped on the subject of communicable disease. I want to begin by saying that I am in full support of having our children back in school. Boy, did I love being back, and I miss it already. I want to applaud Centerville City Schools in doing everything asked in providing a safe environment for our students. I get to see firsthand as a staff member, everyone wearing masks, social distancing, cleaning our buses and our schools multiple times a day, and washing hands and sanitizing. I want to take a minute to look at the meaning of the word exposed, because we hear this word a lot in this pandemic, and I will use it multiple times tonight. The definition of the word exposed is not covered or hidden, visible. Exposure is defined as the state of being exposed to contact with something. As we know, we are currently remote until January 19th because we have lack of staff to cover quarantines due to exposure, not because of a COVID outbreak. Centerville City Schools website states that we have had 165 positive COVID cases since August 17th. We have had 1,151 quarantined throughout the district due to exposure. I find myself asking, Are we really being exposed when we are at school? If we were not wearing masks, I would say yes. But while we are wearing our masks, the answer is no. We are following protocol and it's working to an extent. We are not in contact with the virus while we're wearing masks. We are not in contact with the virus when we are 6 feet apart. We are not in contact with the virus when we clean every touch surface with our COVID killing Renegade and by washing and sanitizing our hands. We are not in danger during school hours. Thanks to Centerville City Schools for being so diligent. My friend had a good analogy on the lines of exposure. She talked about frostbite. Exposed skin in the cold weather will cause frostbite. Covered skin in the cold weather prevents frostbite. On the lines of masks, an uncovered face could expose you to COVID. A covered face will not, especially in an environment where everyone is masked like our schools. I want to share a conversation I had with my physician, Dr. S. You know who you are. She explained a system that she uses called the 3 C's: cause, cure, and control. She asked me at my appointment, did we cause COVID? Of course, I said no. She said, can we cure COVID? And I said, not at this time. She asked, can we control COVID? And I said, yes. And then she asked me how. And I said, by following the protocol, we have all forever ingrained in our memories that we are controlling our exposure by following our known protocols. Can I control what others are doing after school and on weekends? No. But I can take back control come Monday mornings when schools are open and we are back to masking and etc. I trust in our system and you should too. I am here tonight fighting for the choice to be in school learning because I believe for so many of us, that's where the best education lives. I am fighting for our students' mental health. Have you read the story out of Mason recently where there were 15 students at hospitals in the recent weeks for suicidal ideation? And that's just the ones we know about. How many others are going to suffer because of the stress and the isolation of this pandemic? I am fighting for my sophomore to attend in school learning because the stresses of online learning are just too much. Crash servers, crash Wi-Fi, but more importantly, just her stress in general and isolation. I thank our good teachers, as I know they are trying very hard. In person is just better for us and so many others. I also want to talk about contact tracing. I understand contact tracing environments where we are truly exposed. I don't understand contact tracing in our schools where we are protected. Are we really exposed to the virus in a masked community? I ask you to look up our numbers from August 17th to November 20th. How many contacted COVID at school during exposure wearing masks? I personally was exposed to a positive employee, sent home to quarantine, never developed symptoms, thankfully. Anyone else out there? Under that premise, I don't understand why a 0-symptom negative test and a note to return from a doctor could not let us go back to school and work. Send the sick home and keep the well. Why are we treating students and staff as if we are not wearing our masks? It's causing a lot of undue stress and fear. If I was feeling under the weather, not contact traced to exposure, doctor gave me the test, ruled out COVID, and said it was okay to go back to work, I could then return. So it's just very confusing. I ask you to rethink about contact tracing with our masks. This may be a way out from the lack of staff. If not, I'm begging those of you out there watching right now in need of jobs to come apply at Centerville City Schools, where we practice safe protocols. Our numbers support that we have created a safe bubble where you won't be exposed. We need substitutes in every area. Here's just a random thought. Just curious, how are doctors and nurses not in permanent quarantine due to constant exposure? They stop working when they are sick or test positive for COVID, and I'd like to see us quarantine for the sick. Another thought on area of control, can we talk to our local private schools within our district and ask what they are doing to remain open? Incarnation, for example. Maybe we could learn something to improve ways to keep our schools open. How can our neighbors in Centerville go to private schools in person, but we can't? One last request. When school returns, can we please not pluck our exposed students out of the classroom in front of all of their peers? It's a jarring experience, to say the least, for everyone involved. That student may be negative, asymptomatic, or pre-symptomatic, but as long as that student is following protocol, we are all safe. We need to protect them from public humiliation. I am not a person that loves the masks, like very many of us all. I'm actually dreaming of the day when I can burn them all. I am willing to do whatever it takes to keep our kids safe and in school, and I'd wear 3 if I had to. I ask you to continue to give us the choice to be in school and give those that choose remote learning, hoping subs will join our team. Again, we did not cause COVID. We can't cure COVID. So let's take back control. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Dr. Henderson, I take it no one else has showed up to speak?
No, Mr. Dahl,
Thanks,
that's the only one.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Welcome.
Okay, next item on the agenda is board and administrative reports. Dr. Henderson, student board reports. I'm sorry. Megan? You're muted.
You're muted, Megan.
This is such a 2020 day. Okay. Katie, are you ready to take the lead on this?
Oh, we don't have anything new to report this week.
Okay, that was easy. Good job taking the lead on that one.
All right, well, you're up again. And
right.
take
All right.
whatever time you need. Don't rush through that, okay? It's important.
Okay, it's really long. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay,
You're
it's important.
All right, this is the busiest lame duck season that we have seen in quite a while. Since there is so much going on, I'm only going to cover the 2 biggest issues I feel that you need to be aware of and just mention a few other items briefly. Last week, both the House and the Senate Finance Committee held hearings on the Fair School Funding Plan. This plan was developed by Speaker of the House, Bob Cupp, and Representatives John Patterson, along with their work group that was comprised of both superintendents and treasurers from all over Ohio. This group began working 3 years ago with the goal of trying to find out how much it would cost to educate a child in Ohio and what does each district need in order to operate. Some of the items this group analyzed was national research, best practices, and Ohio school district spending data. This plan can be broken down into 3 components. The first one is the base cost. How much does it cost to educate a quote-unquote typical child? The second component is state and local share, the responsibility of the funding based on costs that should be shared between the state and the local district, with the local share based upon the ability of the school district's community to generate revenue considering its income level and property values. And finally, the third component, categorical aid and targeted assistance. Beyond base funding, the state must respond strategically to critical needs that impact some districts more than others. Categorical aid, unlike base cost, is provided for a specific purpose, and generally it is restricted to that purpose. The Fair School Funding Plan provides categorical aid to school districts for economically disadvantaged students, students with disabilities, gifted students, English language learners, and transportation. If this formula goes into effect, there will be no districts that will be losing money. There are 11 districts that will have no increase, though. This plan also provides funding for students where they are being educated at community schools, at other schools through one of the state scholarship programs, and in the district of court-placed students and open enrollment students. Funding goes directly to the educating entity, which would eliminate deductions from districts' foundation payments. In 1997, Ohio ruled in the case of DeRoth versus State of Ohio that Ohio's method for funding schools through the state school funding program was unconstitutional. So for the past 23 years, Ohio school districts have been operating under a broken system that needs to be fixed. I will continue to watch this, as I am sure Laura is too. The other main issue I want to talk about is the Ed Choice Voucher Program, which was just passed in less than 24 hours after it was unveiled. There was no public debate, input, or notice about this plan, which includes Senate Bill 89. If Governor DeWine signs this bill, it will designate 473 school buildings in 87 public school districts as failing. Students entitled to attend these schools will receive $4,650 or $6,000 in private tuition vouchers paid out of the school district's budget. Centerville at this time only receives about $1,600 from the state at this time, and they will be taking at least $4,650 from our district. Once again, we get $1,600, and they'll be taking about $4,600. Of these 473 schools, 110 buildings receive an A, B, or C on the 2018-2019 state report card, representing 21% of the total schools on the eligibility list. 43 of these buildings will become Ed Choice eligible despite never before having been on the eligibility list. The bill will also increase the poverty threshold from 200% to 250% for the income-based expansion portion of the program. It is important that Governor DeWine does not sign this bill when it is put in his desk, because the outcome would just be devastating to our public schools. The other item I want to touch upon was the General Assembly also sent House Bill 404 to the governor. The bill allows extended the temporary authorization for members of public body to hold and attend meetings or hearings via electronic technology until July of 2021, extend the summer food service program regulations, extend license deadlines, and extend the 2021-2022 school year prohibition against using value-added data for teacher, principal, or school counselor performance evaluation. Specifically, school districts cannot be penalized for failing to administer the diagnostic assessment and health screening if certain factors apply, among other changes. And then finally, Senate Bill 311 was passed. This bill prohibits the Ohio Department of Health from issuing a general, mandatory, statewide, or regional quarantine or isolation order that applies to and is enforced against individuals who have not been either directly exposed to or medically diagnosed with a disease that is subject of the order, and allows the General Assembly to adopt a concurrent resolution to rescind certain ODH orders or rules for preventing the spread of contagious or infectious diseases. This bill also goes to the governor. And finally, that is the end of the report. You
Thanks,
guys have any
Megan.
questions? We're good. Good.
I don't have any questions. Dr. Henderson, from the list that I saw Megan passed out, I don't think we have any buildings on that list now for the Ed Choice, do we?
I think you're right, Mr. Dahl. Right now, I don't think we do have any buildings on that list. That's correct.
I know we had one on a prior list, but I think this list we do not have.
That's right. Last year, we did have one building on that list. That's correct.
But because of the way the statute was written previously, children attending that building at that time continue to get Ed Choice. They want to use it all the way through high school.
Right. That's correct. Yes.
Even though we don't have any buildings now, that one time can allow any of those students to use the Ed Choice opportunity.
Right. That's correct. Yes.
Thanks for that clarification, John. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the financial update. Laura?
Good evening. Thank you. Just two quick reminders on tonight's agenda. The financial reports that you're approving, we talked about a lot last week, and so I'm not going to go back over all of that stuff. But just a reminder on the monthly breakdown rolling report that we've been looking at on each month since September. We're behind on the revenue, but that's due to timing. So again, just a reminder, that's going to catch itself up in the next 2 months. The other item then on the agenda, item C, under the treasurer's report, is the 5-year forecast that'll get submitted to the Ohio Department of Education. It's a required filing. And the numbers on there are the same information that we talked about back in August. And so it's the same budget, the same numbers that we've been talking about throughout the fall.
Any questions for Laura? I think we're ready for the treasurer's recommendations. A motion to consider approving the October 2020 financial statements, including the monthly general fund rolling report, monthly general fund breakdown, monthly cash reconciliation, monthly fund activity report, then and now purchase orders approved by administration, certified by the treasurer, and is supported by board resolution totaling $71,591.52.
So
Motion,
moved.
please.
Second.
Questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Motion to consider approving the minutes of the following Board of Education meetings: October 26, 2020 regular meeting, November 16th, 2020 special meeting work session.
So moved on that.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Need a motion considering the approval of the general fund 5-year forecast and assumptions for fiscal years 2021 through 2025 for submission to the Ohio Department of Education that Ms. Sauber just discussed with us.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Superintendent recommendations, I think we can take A, B, C, D, D1, and E as one. Is that right, Ms. Sauber?
That's correct, right?
Superintendent recommends accepting resignations as listed on Schedule A. The superintendent recommends the employment, change of employment status, or change of contract status for certificated persons listed on Schedule B for the salaries programs on the effective dates given. Superintendent recommends the employment and change of employment status for the support staff personnel listed on Schedule C for the salaries programs on the effective dates given. Superintendent recommends the employment personnel listed on Schedules D and D1 for supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments. Superintendent recommends the granting of leave of absence for the personnel listed on Schedule E for the reasons on the dates given. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Going back to C1, superintendent recommends the employment or change of employment status for the support staff personnel listed on Schedule C1 for the salaries programs on the effective dates given.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
This is C as in Charlie, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Abstain.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Now we're going to Schedule D as in Delta 2. Superintendent recommends the employment of personnel listed on Schedule D2 for the supplemental contracts and extra duty assignments. Motion,
So
please.
moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Dane.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. D Delta 3, superintendent recommends the employment of personnel listed on Schedule D3 for supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Staying. And can we take D4 and E1 together then? You okay? D Delta 4, the superintendent recommends the employment of the personnel listed on Schedule D4 for the supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments. And E1, the superintendent recommends the granting of leaves of absence for personnel listed on Schedule E1 for the reasons on the dates given.
So
Motion,
moved.
please.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Abstain, please.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is consider approving the reappointment of Ram Nuna, the Washington Centerville Public Library Board of Trustees for another 7-year term that would begin January 1, 2021 to December 31, 2027. Dr. Henderson, would you like to explain to the public why we're doing this?
Sure, Mr. Dahl. The Ohio Revised Code mandates that when a local library system is in place in a community, that the public school district must pass a resolution appointing the library trustees. And so in this particular case, Mr. Nuna was one of the trustees and is finishing a 7-year term. They posted that position knowing that his term was coming up. Mr. Nuna applied for that position again. In fact, was the only person that applied for that position again. They would have gone through an interview process, but they're happy to have Mr. Ram Nuna be interested in being on a trustee again, and would like the board to satisfy the Ohio Revised Code by appointing him to the library for another 7-year term. I would just share also that this is the only thing that we do as far as our school district. We're not responsible for their funding, their finances, or anything like that. The library does all that. This is the only thing that we're required to do per the Ohio Revised Code in regards to the Washington Centerville Public Library.
Good, thank you. Call the roll, please.
I need a
We didn't have a
motion.
motion? I'm sorry, we did. Sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll?
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Next item on the agenda, need a motion to consider approving a resolution for building assessment and master facility plan and approving the design services, meeting the request of qualifications, allowing Levenport Architects to evaluate district facilities, provide a master facilities plan. Cost of the building assessment and master facility plan not to exceed $150,000. This was reviewed at our last meeting. Mr. Wilson. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions or comments? Hearing none. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
No.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Abstain.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda is consider approving the procurement of track replacement and services rendered from Binon Field Turf, Circuit Sports Company through the participation in a contract of the National Cooperative Purchasing Allowance. Cost of the track replacement is $367,000. It was also discussed at our last meeting by Mr. Wesney. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I know we've discussed this last time, and we have the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance. Maybe an explanation of what that does for us as far as cost relationship to this expenditure and where the money's coming from. Dr. Henderson or Mr. Wesney?
Sure, I can go ahead and start, and John can jump in there if he'd like. But we belong to an educational purchasing co-op, which gives us a lot of buying power because we're with a large number of other school districts. So when we go out to look for a bid or the best price, there's a lot of us that can be part of this large group. So we get what we believe is a very competitive bid. In this particular case, our track is in need of repair. Mr. Wesney had reported to all of you a couple years, well, actually about a year ago, before COVID hit all of us, and shared with you the need to replace the track. This particular bid was in place about a year ago. Now that we're the track, we did not do anything with the track and replace anything due to COVID last summer, but we hope and believe that we will be able to get to the track this summer. It is in dire need of replacement. He was able to show you pictures of a variety of different failing in the track currently. And then this is the exact same price that was quoted or bid to us a year ago. So I don't know, John, do you want to jump in and anything else to add?
Evening. Just the only thing I would add is that the funding for this would come from the permanent improvement budget. And, it's part of the purchasing co-op. This allows us to get competitive pricing. And it is the exact same price that was quoted to us last spring.
John, I think you reported at last meeting, you had 3 different quotes, as I recall.
That is correct.
This was the lowest quote and same as last year.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
Yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Henderson, before we go to Jeremy, you have any other comments for us?
Well, I would like to wish all of the board, happy Thanksgiving. I know that it's going to be a different holiday for most of us, but I hope that all of you have a happy holiday and are able to celebrate to the extent that you are safely. I'd also like to wish happy Thanksgiving to any and all of the public that are watching the live stream as well. Again, I would hope that everybody stays well and healthy too. So, we're going to work hard to do the same here and to do the right things, and hoping to and planning on getting our students back in person in January. So I think that's what I would say at this point. So wish everybody a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Board members?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Same here.
Happy Thanksgiving.
One thing I would like to comment on the speaker's information provided, and I'll rely on Dr. Henderson and maybe Dr. Rohr to correct me on this, but I recall that when we were able to go in person, one of the requirements that we had to follow, as I recall, we had to do contact tracing, and we had to engage in quarantine in order to make that effective, or that we weren't quarantining after contact tracing. A person with no symptoms still come to school and expose somebody else, and we'd have even more people. Am I remembering that correctly, Dr. Henderson?
Yes, you are. We're following all the guidelines and the protocols and the mandates from public health. So everything that we're doing is in line, with what we're required to do. So it does affect a lot of people. It does affect a lot of students and a lot of staff because of the exposure. So that part is very true, but we are following all of the protocols and the mandates that we're required to do. So, but it impacts every organization immensely, especially school districts. So you're right, though.
And just to follow up, John, again, the masks are wonderful. They do protect, hopefully, both ways, the people that wear and the people that are exposed to it, but it is not 100%. So even wearing masks doesn't give you 100% protection. And contact tracing, again, you can be exposed, you know it, you could be asymptomatic, like you said. Getting a negative COVID test 2 or 3 days after you were exposed only tells you that at that moment you don't have it. It doesn't mean the next day, 2 days later, or 5 days later, you can't turn positive. And we can see positives changing up until 14 days, which is why they have the 14-day mandate. So by all means, safe and effective is wearing masks all the time. That includes mouth and nose, keeping your social distance. And I agree with the speaker. I think we've done a great job, but unfortunately, these things spread and happen. I was telling Dr. Henderson today that, in our office, we had 4 positives over the last 2 weeks, and all of these were Centerville residents. So it is spreading amongst our young people. And again, it's not all coming from just the parents. We don't know where a lot of these are coming from. I do agree that we're seeing much less of this in the younger population, which is great. But as Dr. Henderson said at the last meeting, this is affecting our staff. We can't keep classrooms occupied. There are days where there were 12 classrooms that didn't have teachers. So it isn't just about the kids. And we need to remember that it's about the staff and protecting the staff as well as the families out there with parents and grandparents. So I could just say, continue to be safe, continue to do those things. And I'll reiterate, just like we do all the time, we want children back in school. I mean, we all know it. We all know the mental health issues associated with it. And that is our goal. But again, not everything can work out sometimes the way we want. And caution is still better than risking one's life.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dr.
Dave.
Rourke. You're exactly right. And it's one of those things, unfortunately, until we get a lot more information, we really don't know what we don't know. It's going to continue for a long period of time. Any other comments from anybody? Motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second,
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sternbach,
Yes.
Dr. Rohr,
yes.
Mr. Schreier,
Yes.
Megan Sparks,
Yes.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Have a great
Happy
one. Be
Thanksgiving,
safe.
y'all.